Well, millions of readers worldwide were spellbound by a book we were pleased to introduce, Jonathan Cahn's blockbuster book called The Harbinger. Now, Jonathan has a new book that he said holds the key to the rise and fall of nations, economic recession, financial collapse, and your future. Take a look.
The crash of the New York Stock Exchange, the Great Depression, the attacks of 9/11 are all events that were predicted centuries ago. Jonathan Cahn says that the scriptures are in line with these events and are determining America's financial future. His book, The Mystery of the Shemitah, explains these revelations and shares the secrets to achieving economic prosperity in America.
Jonathan Cahn is here with us today. Jonathan, I'm so glad to see you again. God bless
Great to
you.
be back, Pat.
God bless you.
My blessing.
I love The Harbinger. It was right on point. It was so dramatic and did so well. Now you've written one called The Mystery of the, what is it, Shemitah?
Yes.
What is the Shemitah?
The Shemitah, and this is a book I didn't plan to write,
Okay.
but there's so much in it. The Shemitah is one of the mysteries that begins with the Harbinger, and it is one that is literally determined the rise and fall of Wall Street, the rise and fall of nations. It is coming soon. The next one is coming, is happening. It has affected our lives, every one of our lives from the moment we were born. That's what kind of blew me away. The Shemitah is the Sabbath year in the Bible, and that every 7 years God said you will have a rest, and there's no buying, no sowing, no reaping. And on the last day of the Shemitah is the climax. It's called Elul 29. On that day, all debts are wiped out, all credits wiped out. It literally wipes the financial slate. It just completely clean. And the thing is, the amazing thing is that this mystery has continued into the modern times. It is operating.
What's the start date? How do you figure the start?
Of the Shemitah?
Of this cycle.
Okay, the cycle, well, it goes back from ancient times. So the rabbis have taken it even from the destruction of the temple.
Okay.
And so it's been so they know when it is. And it's observed in Israel all the time, continuously.
When did it start?
Well, the last one was 2007 and 2008.
Well, way back when.
At least from it comes from Moses. It comes from Mount Sinai.
Yeah.
And this was given to Israel. And in fact, this became, here's the thing, that this was to be a blessing. But when Israel turned away from God, the Shemitah turns from a blessing to a sign of judgment on a nation that has driven God out of its life.
Well, you've got 7 years in the Shemitah, then you've got 49, 50 years for the Jubilee.
Yes. One of the mysteries in the book is called the mystery of the seventh Shemitah. When you get to the 7 Shemitahs, you have a mega Shemitah, which is the Jubilee.
Okay.
And actually, even that is part of it too, because there's one of the mysteries called the mystery of the seventh Shemitah that actually is linked to Israel and Jerusalem, even the return of Jerusalem, and the next pattern of that is coming very shortly. We are actually at the beginning of a Shemitah very soon. In fact, this month, within 2 weeks, it begins. And the thing is that when Israel was destroyed in 586 BC, God said it was based on this thing called the Shemitah. They were in Babylon for 70 years, based on the Shemitahs, the 70 years they didn't observe. So the Shemitah not only affects the financial realm, the economic realm, but also literally is linked to the destruction of nations or the rise of nations.
Now, in your Harbinger, you showed clearly how the United States was tied into the Harbinger. I mean, there was no question with all the various signs.
Yes.
How come the Shemitah affects the Gentiles instead of the Jews, or does it affect the whole world?
Yeah, well, it's not that. I would say the whole world. But, well, one, we're under the new covenant, and we are not. The first thing is that literally God is able to use a biblical pattern to send a message to a nation, any nation. Now, America. Well, actually, the Shemitah affects America and affects the world. Let me give you an example. If you look at the greatest financial collapses in modern times, I mean, long term, Great Depression, Great Recession, are any of them linked to the Shemitah? The answer is the majority of them. The majority of the collapses happen in the year of the Shemitah.
Like the crash of the Great Depression?
That one as well, yes, and the Great Recession. It's amazing. I'll give you another. In the last 40 years, there have been 5 major financial collapses, long-term collapses, the ups and downs. And every single one of them happens linked to the Shemitah. Every single one, linked by this 7-year mystery. If you take, for instance, you take the greatest day crashes, single day crashes in Wall Street, and the percentage crashes. And do any of them happen at the time of in the Shemitah? There's a month called Tishri, which which that's the month when all these things are manifested. The majority of them happen all in this one month or cluster around this month. A majority of them. If you take, for instance, you notice, Pat, that financial analysts have been always puzzled that these great collapses seem to happen around October and September. Yeah. Well, they've been mystified. There's a reason. In the Bible, that is the exact time. It's the month of Tishri, which manifests this collapse in the Bible. And
well, I mean, you're supposed to, forgive debts.
Yes.
And people go back to their farms and all this kind of stuff. But that isn't a collapse, but the collapse is a sign of judgment. So how does that work?
Yeah, well, what happens is it was originally, again, it was a blessing. But what happened is that Israel pursued other gods and idols and a material gain. And God said, okay, now the Shemitah is going to come by force. So what happens is literally, the nation is destroyed and literally the land rests. God says the land will rest because of the Shemitah. So what was meant to be a blessing turns into this sign of that it strikes the financial realm and literally wipes out accounts, because that's what happens with an economic collapse or a financial collapse. Yeah. The scary thing is that it seems to be getting more and more intense, because in the year 2001, comes the greatest point crash in American history. It was caused by 9/11, which we're getting to. And when does it happen? It happens on the exact Elul 29 day appointed in the Bible, of the day of wiping out accounts, appointed by God. That is a sign of a nation that has turned away from God. But that record lasts for 7 years. In 2008, it's finally broken by the other greatest collapse, the Great Recession. Right. Happens September 29th. When they go to Wall Street, they go to ring the bell refuses to ring that morning. Even Wall Street took it as a sign. Yeah. And you have the other greatest collapse in American history, 2008. When does it happen? On the exact same biblical day, Elul 29. The two greatest collapses in American history each happen on the day appointed in the Bible from ancient times, and they are separated by exactly 7 Hebrew years, the two down to the day, to the hour, to the minute, to the second. I mean, only God could put that together.
Are we going to have another 50-year anytime soon? The Liberty Bell says proclaim liberty throughout the land.
That's from the Shemitah. And that's from the Jubilee. Yeah, well, the interesting thing is there's a link even with the restoration of the land of Israel, the Balfour Declaration, because the Jubilee is about restoring the land. Right. And so that happens right at the time of the Shemitah, and then if you go 50 years later, or you go 7 Shemitahs later, you have Jerusalem. You have the restoration of Jerusalem. Okay. And now I'm not setting dates. And the book has dates, but God can do it. But the next Shemitah starts this September. The peak is next September. It always builds up to a thing. And then the 50-year period, or what would be the Jubilee, would be 2016. We begin at the end of September of 2015.
But will that signal a collapse, an economic collapse first?
I believe, Now, I'm careful about date setting, but the point is I do believe we need to be ready, because if you go by the last two, it happened exactly. I mean down to the seconds. Yeah. So I believe, well, first of all, it's going to be. Well, I believe whenever it comes, I believe a great shaking is coming to this nation. I mean, the harbingers the harbingers are continuing. This is, I believe, a great shaking that will involve the financial realm, the economic realm. It will even touch more than that. It can happen. I mean, the exact dates are in September of 2015. And the other thing is that the Shemitah not only involves these realms, but also involves the rise of nations, including America. For instance, the Shemitah of 1917, America begins its rise, enters World War I. Right. The world history shifts from Europe to America. You have, the Shemitah in Hebrew means collapse and fall. So, and also it can mean a rise. So you have the beginning of the rise of America, you have collapse of other nations. If you go 4 Shemitahs later, you get to the Shemitah of 1945. another global shaking, cataclysm, and you have Europe falling, America becomes the superpower, we enter a new age.
Right.
If you go another 4 Shemitahs, it comes to another pivotal year, which is 1973, which is when America legalizes the killing of its unborn children. The financial realm collapses, and we lose our first war of Vietnam on the exact date that we won the war of World War II on the other Shemitah. And if you go, and on that same year, you have the building of this monument to celebrate America, which is the World Trade Center. If you go another 4 Shemitahs, it takes you to 2001, the Shemitah of 2001, and which culminates in September of 2001. And the word means, remember, it means collapse. You have the collapse of the towers that represent America's power, and you have the collapse of Wall Street. And so now we are heading to the next one. And so I do believe we should be ready. I do believe it is wise to prepare, because this thing has affected everything.
Well, this could be a global, you're talking about a global collapse in 2015?
Without setting dates, I believe if it follows the pattern, very likely. I believe no matter what, a great shaking is coming. But it could be, and another interesting, Pat, is kind of one of the things is, the Bible speaks of the darkening of the sun. It's a simple, now we're not saying that every time the sun is darkened, but interesting. In 2015, there will be 2 eclipses of the sun. Each one will mark the Shemitah. One will mark the exact middle center point of it, and the other will mark that Elul 29, the climax. The last time that happened, it was in 1987, when the solar eclipse happened on Elul 29. It led to Black Monday, the worst stock market.
Huge collapse, 500 points in the Dow.
And then the other time it happened around the time was 1931, which when it happened, it ushered in the collapse of a month in stock market history. So all these things are converging. And I mean, what it kind of says is, God is in charge. God is in charge.
Well, the amount of debt that's out there right now in the United States is hideous, and it's around the world. It's insupportable. And if something like that happened, it would be a collapse of such epic proportions we can't contemplate it.
Absolutely. And one of the things I noticed, an economist came to me who saw what I wrote in the Mystery of the Shemitah and said, you realize that as the debt level of America goes up, that's when this phenomenon of the Shemitah increases, which is exactly biblical, because it wipes away debt, it wipes away credit, wipes away all these things. It literally means collapse. And I believe, and I'll say something for those who are nervous, I would say, which some are.
You scared them to death. What do you mean?
Hopefully scare them to life, But I would say that if you're afraid, and say, well, safety, and I'm not a financial advisor, but to say that in Hebrew, the word for safety is Yeshua, and Yeshua is Jesus. And the one safety I can say, make sure you're right with him. He's the only thing that stands and is not shaken. And I believe that a shaking's coming, but also God is redemptive, that the point is revival. Because I believe without a shaking, I don't believe this nation is coming back, but with a shaking. So God also tells us that God is in control of everything, everything. Mind-boggling so.
Well, if money is our God, which it has become, God will take down the false God, the true God, and show himself strong.
Exactly. One of the things that happens in the pattern of judgment in the Bible is that it strikes the gods of the nation, or what the nation puts its hope in it, to shake it so that we'd come back to God. And another thing is, there's one of the things in the book called The Mystery of the Towers. And we probably won't have time to get into it, but there's a link in the Bible between the rising of towers and the rising of nations and power. And the interesting, so we've got now, in 2001, you have the collapse of a tower. Well, now we're building this tower in ground zero, which is one of the harbingers. And it looks like, the World Trade Center was conceived in the year of the Shemitah, 1945. It was begun building in the year of the Shemitah, 1966. It was finished the 1973 year of the Shemitah. It was destroyed 2001, the year of the Shemitah. The next tower, this tower that's rising, was also conceived in that last week of 2001 when the leader said, we shall rebuild. And it looks like it may be completed in this year of the Shemitah. I would watch that, because it's like the harbingers are converging with this other mystery of the Shemitah. It's saying really, God is God. God is God.
Jonathan, it's an exciting thing. Ladies and gentlemen, I won't take any more out of what he's got in this book, but it's the mystery of the Shemitah. He goes into great detail about the building of towers, the Chrysler building and the other buildings that were evidence of the strength of America, and then the destruction of the World Trade Center. Fascinating, fascinating. You really believe this is going to happen?
I believe no matter what. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what I would say. The one thing is, I believe we are due for a great shaking, and we should be ready. Now, does it have to happen? Does God have to do it according to the timing plan? He doesn't. He doesn't. But I would say, you know, it says a wise man prepares. I would be ready.
Well, if we could have revival, that's what we want. Jonathan, we appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, the mystery of the Shemitah. How do you get this? Is this out now?
This just came out last week,
All right.
and it seems that this is the first interview I've done since
Yeah.
the release because I was sick. So this is the first one. It's always the 700 Club. This is available everywhere: Amazon, Walmart, all around. It just came out. On the day it came out, it became the #5 book in the world on the planet, and it's actually going stronger than the Harbinger. So it's going forth.
I believe. Did we introduce the Harbinger?
Yes. It was September 3rd. That was the release date. You didn't know it, but you just said do it on September 3rd.
Maybe this is prophetic again.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Jonathan, I love you. I appreciate you, man.
Thank you, Pat.
God bless you. Folks, here it is, the mystery of the Shemitah. Wow! Will it tell the future about the economic plight of America? Available wherever books are sold. Jonathan Cahn, follow-up to The Harbinger. God bless you.